Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth for You. I posted this on my webpage back in 2015 after a turkey dinner with my family out here in California. Activism and turkey dinner. I don't want to know and I don't care. Well, there's the time we get together with our loved ones. We don't get to see them as much, and so when we get together, it's a special time of celebration. But it's also time to speak about very inconvenient truths. So this is what happened. This is how I recounted it. Dear beloved family, I apologize for leaving the Thanksgiving dinner early and not saying goodbye before dessert was even served. It is very sad and unfortunate that many in our family cannot discuss things that truly matter and that will increasingly affect us all much greater in a very short time horizon. It is only a couple times a year that we all who we hold dear and love the most gather. Many of you wish for only pleasantries and celebration when we gather, yet, as you can discover below, time is short for all on earth if we don't immediately halt and change the geoengineering of our earth by mad scientists and their rulers. At the dinner table, a senior member and I got into a discussion that turned to water. When I pointed out the sheer insaneness that we have no water, yet golf courses, wineries, car washes were still operating business as usual, she went off on me and left the table stating over and over, "I don't want to hear it and I don't care." Now this was during the 5-year drought we were having. Then we had the torrential rains, and then we're having the drought, and now it looks like we're going to have torrential rains again. The arc storm is coming. But maybe because she is in her sunset years, and maybe she can't handle just one more piece of bad news, or maybe she and family members, including doctors and dentists in our family, are simply marginalized by the weapons of mass distraction. Yet no one wants to be the bearer of such news. Yet it is the courageous, the informed, and the willing to look at all dark things and shine your light so dark can no longer hide in the shadows. That is our calling. I do it out of love for you all, though I suspect this will be my last family dinner with you all. I get it that some of you in your golden years want peace, harmony, tranquility, etc., but at what cost to the future of our children, of all children? If you've passed on and your children's future is greatly compromised or ended, I guarantee you will still feel it in your afterlife when full consciousness is regained. We have become the nation of the dumb and numb. No doubt the daily barrage of horrible news is overwhelming. But we must choose to see. We must choose to learn. We must choose to understand. To declare like one of you did to me in no uncertain terms that, quote, "I don't care and don't want to know," is shameful, in my humble opinion. We have to want to know. We have to talk about things that matter. Every man, woman, and child has a current debt of some 148,000, while trillions and trillions are spent with our tax dollars to bomb the living crap out of the next country on the New World Order list. My God, the Pacific Ocean is dying, and as it dies, it is releasing terminal amounts of methane gas from the ocean floors. And the crabs are dying. The crabs we used to have for dinner every Thanksgiving, but we no longer had them. And that's what got me kicked out of Thanksgiving dinner, is I had a toast to the crabs who could no longer be serving us food that evening. So I want to get into the history of Thanksgiving here. And this is from my dear friend Paula Rojas, who I want to give a shout out to and give thanks to. She does yeoman's work putting out the truth. She takes care of her crippled brother and many in her community, and does the work in her community in Montana. The truth of Thanksgiving: we've been socially programmed. Part of growing up in the United States is discovering that some of the fairy tales, aka lies, your parents were told you were about holidays as children are not real, like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. They've got you lying to your children off the bat, folks. That disappointment or feeling of betrayal is a fleeting and innocent wake-up call among many more to come in life. But the biggest holiday fairy tale is the one that has been used not just to entertain youthful imagination, but instead for social programming and the whitewashing, literally, of our history, and that is the truth of Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving holiday could not be a more fitting example of historical and continued use of subversive social programming that has been intrinsically injected into our culture. Thanksgiving is supposedly a time of reflection, of gratitude, and giving to those in need. a time when we remember the struggles and sacrifices made by the, quote, founders of our country and how we were able to break bread with the Native Americans some 400 years ago. Nothing could be further from the truth. And then the next morning we rise before the sun to get in line for those Black Friday deals, hoping to not get injured in the apotheosis of consumer greed. But the truth is the majority of our society has been indoctrinated to fit this mold and is unaware of the historical truth of Thanksgiving. Our perception of Thanksgiving, as many things learned and dominate Western curriculum, is Eurocentric. Starting in 1970, protests began when a local Wampanoag leader was invited by the Commonwealth to speak on the 350th anniversary of the Pilgrims' Landing. He penned a speech detailing the pillaging of graves and enslavement of his people by the early settlers, but was prohibited by delivering it. Some of us might remember being taught the name Squanto, the Patuxet Native American who helped the Pilgrims when they were dying from disease and exposure to the elements. What they failed to tell us, however, was that he had already been captured by the European sea captain, sold into slavery, escaped, and made his way back to England, yet still found it in himself to help out our immigrant forefathers in their dire needs. George Washington first proclaimed official day of Thanksgiving 1789 as a one-off holiday for citizens to pray and give thanks for the assembly of the government, despite all the opposition it had endured. Nearly a century after Washington's proclamation, Abraham Lincoln declared Thanksgiving Day an annual holiday to be celebrated on the last day of the Thursday of November. Again, failing to mention of the Native Americans, Lincoln used the holiday for political and religious capital. Today, Thanksgiving continues to be celebrated for purposes and largely... Let me back up a minute. Sorry about that. Though it's unclear how Lincoln truly felt about the natives, who were responsible for ordering the largest mass execution in U.S. history, hanging 38 Dakota Sioux. He never persecuted Confederate generals this way. Today, Thanksgiving continues to be celebrated for purposes that largely ignore its truly historical context with indigenous people. Large corporations and federal governments have continued their interminable encroachment on indigenous land to this day, from the Sioux Black Hills, where Mount Rushmore was carved, to the Standing Rock Reservation, where the Dakota Access Pipeline was planned to be built. And note the people in the protest, the lead protesters, are getting prison sentences of 30 to 90 years for protesting the pipeline. Native Americans are killed at a higher rate in the hands of police than any other racial or ethnic group, and the rate of suicide in the Native American communities is 190% higher than the general population. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate for Native Americans in USA is double the national average, sometimes as high as 85%, while they're put on reservations. Get it? Reservations. These are just a few of the laundry list of facts that outline the struggles faced by indigenous people today. If we claim to care about these issues, how do we have the gall to celebrate Thanksgiving? We would be remiss not to mention how the modern social programming of Thanksgiving has resulted in a holidays designed to perpetuate our current system of consumerism and corporate greed. Black Friday has practically become tied to Thanksgiving, and those who aren't capitulating to the retail madness are likely continuing a binge of overeating and watching bread and circus football.
All right, everybody, this is the way it's going to take down, okay? I need the first 34 divisions to line up behind that yellow line.
Capitalism has become our mantra, our religion. Capitalists capitalize. When there is a tragic event in Western society, we're told to go shopping. What did President Bush say after 9/11 to make us feel better, to get our minds off it? Go shopping. Shop till you drop. People camp out, waiting in line to be the first to store on Black Friday and start their Black Friday deals even earlier on Thanksgiving Day itself. Now they've moved it up even a week. It's Black Friday week. The grip of capitalism is impinging on a holiday whose original intent was already skewed in the first place. But this doesn't have to be the case. We can recognize our social programming, think for ourselves, and raise our collective consciousness. This Thanksgiving, let's make an effort to realize what this holiday should really be about. And while you're arguing with relatives over political topics, tax reform, illegal immigration, take a moment to remember who the real illegal immigrants were and how we've been socially programmed to think otherwise. So let's get into the real history of Black Friday. Doesn't just get into just retail spending. First recorded use of Black Friday was applied to holiday shopping, but to the financial crisis. September 24th, 1869, two Wall Street ruthless financiers, Jay Gould and Jim Fisk, worked together to buy up as much as they could of the nation's gold, hoping to drive the price sky high. Conspiracy unraveled, sending the stock market into a free fall and bankrupting everyone from Wall Street to farmers. The most commonly repeated story behind the post-Thanksgiving shopping related to Black Friday tradition links it to retailers. As the story goes, after a year of operating at a loss in the red, stores would supposedly earn a profit that went into black after Friday, after Thanksgiving. In recent years, another myth has surfaced that gives a particularly ugly twist to the tradition, claiming that back in the 1800s, Southern plantation owners could buy slaves at a discount on the day after Thanksgiving. This version of Black Friday's roots has understandably led some to call for a boycott of the retail holiday. The true story behind Black Friday is not as sunny as retailers might have you believe. In the 1950s, police in the city of Philadelphia used the term to describe the chaos that ensued on the day after Thanksgiving when hordes of suburban shoppers and tourists flooded into the city in advance of the big Army-Navy football game held on Saturday every year. The Philly cops would not be able to take the day off. They would have to work extra long shift with additional crowds. Shoplifters would take advantage of the bedlam in the stores to make off with merchandise. 1961, Black Friday caught on in Philadelphia to the extent the city's merchants and boosters tried unsuccessfully to change it to Big Friday.
Pushed and shoved their way through Black Friday today. The mad dash into a Walmart store knocked shoppers to the ground near Grand Rapids, Michigan at 5 in the morning. Despite several people falling to the ground, shoppers charged ahead, fixated on doorbuster deals. A 13-year-old girl helping a pregnant woman get up had to be taken away by ambulance. Another woman who was injured was taken to the hospital. Her husband blamed the store for a lack of security.
Stores started open earlier on that Friday, and now most dedicated shoppers can head out right after that Thanksgiving meal. According to a pre-holiday survey this year by the National Retail Federation, an estimated 135.8 million Americans definitely plan to shop over Thanksgiving weekend and said they would or might take advantage of online deals offered on Cyber Monday. And then we should have a debt Tuesday through Thursday because that's what everybody goes into. And then there was Tulsa's Black Wall Street, which flourished as a self-contained hub in the early 1900s, before the Tulsa Race Massacre, where the city's blast district of Greenwood was attacked by white mobs, resulting in 2 days of bloodshed. The massacre began on May 31st, 1921, and left hundreds of black residents dead, thousands of houses destroyed. The Greenwood district, with a population of 10,000 at the time, had thrived as the epicenter of the African-American business and cultural, particularly on bustling Greenwood Avenue, commonly known as Black Wall Street. Founded in 1906, Greenwood was developed on Indian territory, a vast area where a Native American tribe had been forced to relocate. Some African Americans had been former slaves of the tribes and subsequently integrated into tribal communities, acquired allotted land in Greenwood through the Dawes Act that gave land to individual Native Americans. The black sharecroppers fleeing racial oppression relocated to the region as well in search of better post-Civil War. Oklahoma begins to be promoted as a safe haven for African Americans who start to become particularly post-emancipation to Indian territory. Largest number of black townships after the Civil War were located in Oklahoma. African Americans founded more than 50 black townships in the state. Gurley started a boarding house for African Americans. Word began to spread about opportunities for blacks in Greenwood, and they flocked to the district. Prominent black entrepreneurs followed suit, later becoming lawyers and activists, built a 55-room luxury hotel. Greenwood became self-contained and self-reliant. Demands for equal rights were an ongoing mission for blacks in Tulsa despite grim Jim Crow oppression. Greenwood itself had a railway track running through it that separated the black and white populations. As a practical matter, they had no choice where to relocate their business. Tulsa was rigidly segregated, and Oklahoma became increasingly racist after statehood. Greenwood Avenue, there were luxury shops, restaurants, grocery stores, hotels, jewelry, clothing stores, movie theaters, barber shops, salons, and a library, and pool halls, nightclubs, and offices for doctors, lawyers, and dentists. Greenwood also had its own school system, post office, savings bank and loan, hospital, bus, and taxi service. Greenwood was home to far less affluent African Americans as well. A significant number still worked in menial jobs such as janitors, dishwashers, porters, and domestics. The money they earned outside of Greenwood was spent within the district. It was said that within Greenwood, every dollar would change hands 19 times before it left the community. This is why they created the whole Rosa Parks story. Rosa Parks sitting in the white diner to get the blacks to go shopping in the white economy because the white economy was suffering at the time. All right, and so what did they do? They destroyed it. It wasn't long before the affluent African Americans attracted the attention of local white residents. I think the word jealousy is certainly appropriate during the time. With the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan, routinely upheld the state's restrictions on voting access for American Indians. Lynchings proliferated across the country, particularly during the Red Summer of 1919, where anti-black riots erupted in major cities, including Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Tulsa Star, the newspaper, encouraged blacks to take up arms and show up at courthouses. And it went on. And then a word of possible lynching spread. About around 75 armed blacks returned to the courthouse, where they were met by some 1,500 whites. This led to millions of property damage and no help from the city. But what really happened is they went and bombed the crap out of Tulsa, Black Wall Street. What ensued was one of the most devastating riots in American history, an event that can only be characterized as terrorism. Before dawn, a mob of angry white men stormed into Greenwood armed with guns, some provided by local officers who participated in the riots. Hundreds of businesses and homes were ransacked and set afire. Black men, some who served in World War I, rallied together and armed themselves, ready to fight for their families and community. White indiscriminately shot and killed men, women, and children on foot by car. As the number of casualties on both sides escalated, airplanes used in World War I were dispatched, firing rifles at residents and dropping fire bombs on the black community. Where did they get the fire bombs from? The military. Outnumbered and outgunned, the riots grew worse for black Tulsans. Countless families began to flee after being trapped between rampant flames and gunfire. Close to 300 blacks were murdered, while many others left injured, homeless, and held in internment camps by local law enforcement. By 1942, black Tulsans rebuilt Greenwood without any assistance from the state and saw a resurgence of over 240 businesses. But that's not where the story ends. These were thriving people. The state of Oklahoma had only 2 airports, yet 6 black families owned and flew their own airplanes. They were powerful folks. They had a beautiful community going on there, and it was absolutely devastated. I mean, this is a story that needs to get out in cold. The police disregarded due process, arresting blacks and turning them into detention camps. Meanwhile, no whites were arrested. How would that make you feel if you were one of those families, folks, about justice or just us? So it was typical to have a Friday evening in Oklahoma. This was after they bombed the crap on Black Friday in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Black Wall Street Day, and they bombed them so that Black Wall Street could no longer exist. And they rounded up all the blacks and put them in outdoor pens. And so the whites in Oklahoma would go up on the hills and have a picnic, which meant to pick a nigger to lynch the next day. Sorry, it's true. The word picnic is rooted from the whole thing of pick a nigger. This is where individuals would pick a black person to lynch and make this into a family gathering. There would be music and a picnic, nick being white acronym for nigger. Scenes of this were in the movie Rosewood. The black producers and writers should have chosen to use the word barbecue or outing instead of picnic. The attempt to tie lynchings to family outings where food was served is to misunderstand the real nature of the events. Rather, they were outbreaks of the mass white hysteria and attempts by groups of whites to terrorize and brutalize the entire black communities where they occurred. Victims were chosen at random, although women and children were frequently present. It is more accurate to view these events as the collective psychotic behavior rather than family outings. Lynching had become a ritual of the interracial social control and recreation rather than simply a punishment for crime. Wake up, folks. Spread the word. Speak out. They can't unhear you. Peace. Love one another. Give thanks to all and share the gift of truth. Plain truth out. Peace.